Hello and welcome. My name is Amber, and I'm here today to talk to you about scholarships. This is one of my favorite things to talk to students about, and it's probably one of the areas that I have the most experience with as a student applying for scholarships and being awarded scholarships, but also in my 5+ years in higher education, a good portion of that was working in a scholarship office at a college. And so I'm familiar with all aspects of the scholarship process, and so I'm really excited to share with you all of the tips and tricks and things that I've learned along the way, so hopefully it can help you on your journey. Before I go into scholarships, I really want to backtrack and talk about why even go to college, why consider education after high school. Right, these are 3 reasons why you should consider education after high school. The first one is to get a career you want. Depending on what you want to do will determine how far in school you have to go. If you want to be a teacher, you're going to at least have to have a bachelor's degree, maybe even a master's, or even as far as a doctoral degree, depending on what level of school you want to teach. And so if you haven't started researching, you don't know what you want to do, start that process now. Look up jobs, look up things that interest you, and see if there are jobs related to that so you can prepare. Knowing what you want to do job-wise is going to be very helpful for you as you plan and prepare for life after high school and even in the scholarship search process. Another reason is to increase earning potential. As an adult, I can verify that it costs money. And it's actually kind of expensive to be an adult. There's rent or mortgage, you're responsible for your vehicle if you have one, food, electricity, phone, internet. And if you have people you're responsible for or pets, that's an additional cost. And so keep that in mind. Generally, we see as your degree increases, so does the potential earning income as well. The third reason is increased job security and also really just job opportunities. More frequently in these days, we see that jobs are requiring degrees. And so if you are somebody who just has a high school diploma and you're competing against somebody with a bachelor's degree for the same position, odds are they're going to choose the person with the bachelor's degree over the person with the high school diploma. And so keep these things in mind as you're planning and preparing for life after high school. And so here's another thing you may or may not have known, but college costs money. You are investing in yourself. So we've established that college costs money, but how much does it cost? Depending on where you want to go is going to determine how much it's going to cost you to go. I think this chart is a good starting point to get you to start thinking about the cost of college. It shows average tuition and fees. And so you'll notice public in-state is about $10,000, public out-of-state is a little over $22,000, and private colleges are almost $40,000 a year. That's what this is showing every year. And that's just for tuition and fees. There's actually a lot more that goes into the cost, and we'll get into that in the next few slides. But this is a good starting point just to have an idea. As you're researching colleges that you're interested in going to, make sure that you are looking for cost of attendance on their website or asking the representative about cost of attendance, because it's going to give you a much more accurate representation of the actual cost per year to go to that particular school compared to just looking at the tuition and fees. This is an example for an in-state public college. So this is the University of Arkansas's cost of attendance. And you'll notice that they're going to have different options. And so this one shows an undergraduate living on campus, an undergraduate living with their parents, and an independent undergraduate, so somebody probably living on their own, not with family or not on campus. And you'll notice tuition and fees, the estimate is going to be the same, but really where it differs is going to be in that second section. So books, room, board, personal transportation, all of these things are going to be estimated. And so they're not the actual amounts you're going to spend. You're going to notice some variation semester to semester, most likely. And so keep that in mind, but this is a good number to start with. And so typically for undergraduates, for freshmen specifically, we require students to live on campus. And this is really common among most colleges, just because research has showed that students who live on campus their freshman year tend to be more successful. Just because they're on campus, they're right next to all of the resources that they can utilize. And so keep that in mind as you're doing your search, because some schools are going to require that you live on campus at least your first year, if not more, and that's going to impact the cost. So here's an example of out-of-state public colleges. Anytime you go out of state, even whether it's public or private, it's going to be more than in-state. They're always going to charge more for out-of-state students to attend that school. And so this example is University of Missouri, so Mizzou. It's a pretty popular out-of-state school that I hear students choose to consider. And so they have two different costs of attendance on their website, and I kind of copied them on the slide here. And so they have a non-Missouri resident living on campus and a non-Missouri resident living off campus. And so the chart is formatted differently, but it has a lot of the same information as like the U of A one, just in a different format and obviously different costs estimated. And so for their fees living on campus, tuition and fees is like $29,000, but then all of the other things add up, and so it's roughly $50,000 almost to live on campus when you're considering out of state. Don't let that cost necessarily deter you from considering out of state schools. If it's somewhere that you really want to go to and it has maybe this really great program that you want to participate in, just know the higher your cost, the more aid you're going to want to try and get, the more scholarships. And so we're going to get more into that. And then here is an example of the cost of attendance for a private college. And this is Hendrix. It's located here in Arkansas, but there are private colleges outside of the state as well. And so theirs is listed a little bit differently. They say 9 months, which is essentially the fall and spring semester. So same information really as the other two schools, it's just worded a little bit differently. And so you'll notice that 9 months living on campus is over $60,000. 9 months off campus is not that much, estimated at just a little over $60,000, just a few $1,000 less. And then living with the parent is going to be in the $50,000. And so be mindful of the costs as you're researching schools. You don't want to go into debt. It's really heartbreaking to see students choose a school that's just out of their range. But if you are planning and preparing ahead of time, you could get enough scholarships to meet those needs, or at least get a good portion of that. But if you procrastinate and wait till the last minute, then most of this cost will fall onto you. And so start your research now for schools and scholarships, all of those things. And so how to cover the cost, right? We've talked about the cost and given you some examples. And so now we're going to get into how you can cover that cost, how you can essentially convince other people to pay for you to go to school. And so there are going to be three primary ways. The first one is going to be federal aid, and so you'll complete this application called FAFSA, Free Application for Federal Student Aid, and that's going to qualify you for things like Pell Grant and work study, and even loans if that's something you end up needing. And so that's an important application you'll fill out in your senior year, and then every subsequent year after that while you're in school. And then you also have state aid. And so the state of Arkansas has scholarships available to you, and you'd complete them through the universal application on the ADHE website. So the most common scholarship students receive from the state is the Arkansas Academic Challenge Scholarship, also referred to as the Lottery Scholarship. That's really helpful. That first year you get $1,000, but then it grows. So you get more each year after that. So that's really helpful. We're not going to really go much more into federal aid and state aid since this presentation is specifically about scholarships. But if that's something you want to know more about, let me know in the comments. We can create another presentation and get you that information as well. And so the what, why, who, when, and where of scholarships. So what are scholarships? So dictionary.com defines it as a sum of money or other aid granted to a student because of merit, need, etc. to pursue his, her, their studies. What's really cool about scholarships is you do not have to repay the money. So if you are awarded $10,000 in scholarships, that's great. You don't have to pay $10,000 back. And so that's why it's really important to start looking for scholarships and consider scholarships over loans, because loans you have to pay back, scholarships you don't. So why apply for scholarships? We've already covered this some, but I want to go back and touch on a few other points. So this is pretend student, and pretend student wants to go to the U of A and live on campus. And so that's a little over $26,000 estimated cost, right? So a couple of these things might change, whether that's books, room and board, personal transportation, those may vary. But if we're going to look at this $26,000 number as their goal and compare it to the aid that they were able to receive. And so they received quite a number of grants and scholarships that totaled almost $16,000. And so that leaves a little over $10,000 left for them to cover. And so that's much more doable than trying to cover $26,000 by yourself. And so even if you aren't able to get everything covered, at least get as much of it covered as you can. Future you will thank you. And I also really want to touch on this middle column of this chart for pretend student where it says renewable, non-renewable. As you're looking for scholarships, that's really important for you to know whether it's renewable or not. So renewable means you can receive it more than 1 year, potentially every year you're in school. And non-renewable means it's either 1 semester or 1 year. It has an end date. And so if you are applying to go to school and you have the cost for your first year covered with non-renewable scholarships, that's great. You don't have to worry about that year, but you will have to think about that future year because non-renewable scholarships have that endpoint. And if you don't replace them with other scholarships, then you become responsible for that cost as well. So just keep that in mind in your search. Getting a non-renewable scholarship is great. Just make sure you know there's a deadline. Who can apply for scholarships? Anyone. There are scholarships for everything and everyone. You just have to find them. So when can you apply for scholarships? It's going to really vary depending on the scholarship requirements. As you start your research and search in general for scholarships, you're going to notice that each scholarship is going to have requirements. So things you either have to do or have to receive that scholarship. So for example, you may have to have a 3.5 GPA or at least a 20 on the ACT, or maybe you have to write an essay or submit a video. And so there are going to be things that you have to do, and in those requirements it's going to specify whether you have to be in a specific grade or not. If it doesn't specify that you have to be a high school senior, then it's pretty much open for anybody to apply. And so really the most common time students start looking for scholarships is when they're juniors and seniors in high school. but you can start sooner than that. I know I helped a student when I was a scholarship coordinator who has been bowling for years and won multiple tournaments. And so the tournament money, that prize money, was actually scholarship money. And so he had been accruing scholarship money since junior high by winning bowling competitions. And so you can really start anytime, but just make sure you're paying attention to the requirements of the scholarship. And so where can you find scholarships? This is probably the most commonly asked questions, like where do I look? How do I even start looking? And so here are some good ideas on things and places to start. So your high school is a really great place to start. Not all high schools offer scholarships, but a lot of times schools will offer scholarship opportunities for their seniors, whether it's through the actual high school or maybe the school has a person who reaches out to the community and gathers scholarships that way. So if you are not sure if your high school has scholarships, reach out to your counselor and ask. So the college that you are interested in going to, a lot of colleges offer scholarships. And so ask, look on their website, see what you might be able to apply for. So community scholarships. So anytime like a community event, a lot of times the community will kind of partner with the college or the high school, but sometimes you can come across one just in your searches and in your connections with people. And so, for example, a community scholarship might be a church scholarship. And so maybe your church is going to give you a scholarship to go to school. That's an example of a community scholarship. And so involvement in volunteer extracurricular activities is really great. They can connect you with scholarship opportunities, i.e. the example with bowling. And so parent or student employment, right? So some examples of that is like Walmart or Tyson. They offer scholarships for students and for children of employees. So maybe your job will offer a scholarship. So like I know Taco Bell for sure, if you're working there, you can apply for scholarships. But if your parent's at Tyson, you might be able to earn a scholarship just because your parent works at Tyson, right? So that's an opportunity to look for. And if you're not sure if your job offers it, ask. Worst thing they can do is say nope, but you might be surprised. And so the internet is a great resource. So there's an internet general, so just maybe Googling scholarships. And then scholarship search engines online can be a valuable resource as well. So as you start your scholarship search, especially on the internet, it's really mindful for you to be aware of red flags. There are scholarship scams out there and you want to protect yourself. And so if you see any of these red flags, don't apply. So if you see a scholarship that's asking for advanced fees or requiring you to pay to apply, it's a scam. You should never have to pay to apply for a scholarship. If it is a legitimate scholarship, there will be no fee to apply. So if it's asking for credit card or banking account information, it's a scam. Same with social security number. Not even your high school applications will ask you to put social security number. They may ask for your student number if it's a high school or a college, but it will never ask for your social security number. And so there are services out there that will charge you to find you scholarships. They're just going to take that money and not find you scholarships. So don't do it. And so anytime you get a phone call or an email saying, hey, you've been awarded this scholarship, but you didn't even apply for it, it's going to be a scam because it's going to get to a point where it kind of reaches any of these previous bullet points, right? They're going to ask you for money or they're going to ask you for information. And so if you didn't apply for it and you're being awarded, it's probably a scam. And so if somebody reaches out to you or you come across a scholarship online and it's really kind of pressuring you, saying like, time's limited, you have to do it now, do it now, do it now, that's going to be a scam. Now keep in mind, scholarships are going to have deadlines and they're posted on the application. That's not the same thing as pressuring you to apply quickly. And so no contact information is also a red flag. You need to be able to contact somebody with questions. And if you can't do that, then it's probably a scam. And then if it has a government endorsement, our government does not endorse scholarships. That's just not something it does. And so anytime there's a claim that this is endorsed by any part of the government, then odds are it's fake. They just want to seem legitimate and they want to seem cool, so they'll make that claim. But it's a red flag. And so there might be some more red flags out there. Just kind of use your brain and your gut, right? If you come across a scholarship application and it seems kind of weird and maybe not legitimate, you can always send it to us and we'll kind of take a look and help you determine whether or not it's legitimate, or just follow your gut, your intuition, and don't apply for that. There are so many scholarships out there for you that you should not be chancing and applying for something that may have a red flag. So scholarship search engines are also a resource for you. And so these are sites where you create a profile and put some information about yourself, not credit card or social security, like not that type of information, but like GPA and interests and clubs and where you're interested in going to school, like what you want to do career-wise, information like that. And then they connect you with scholarship opportunities that you probably qualified to apply. And so FastWeb, College Board, Scholarships.com, CapEx.com, Chegg, Niche, Peterson's, these are all resources that you can try. Just keep in mind, a lot of students use search engines, and so you're competing against a lot of people when you're applying for the scholarships on there, but it's still worth looking into. And so just kind of explore a little bit. A lot of these you don't even have to be in high school to kind of start looking. And so, yeah, check them out. So we're gonna do an activity real quick, and if you want to pause for a moment on the video, but I want you to take a moment and take a piece of paper, open a notes on your phone, and I want you to think of 10 things about you, right? If you have more, that's great, but I want you to come up with at least 10 things. Pause it at this moment if you want to, and then when you have those 10 things, unpause and we'll move forward. Okay, so now you have your 10 things about yourself. Here's an example. So I'm thinking of me in high school, right? And so here's my high school Amber list. And so it has things like my GPA, honor society. I was also part of the green team. I enjoyed creative things. And so anything I thought of, I just kind of put it on this list, right? And you can go back and add and change things later, but this is just to kind of help get you started. And so pick one of these things and Google scholarships for blank. So for example, I am a big fan of cats. And so I Googled scholarships for cat lovers. And there was a lot of options that came up. Another one I did was my first generation. So first generation students are students whose parents have not completed a 4-year degree. And so I was a first gen student, and there are a lot of resources out there for first gen students, and so you can just Google. Right? Take any of these things and you could Google and see if there are scholarships for it. There are scholarships for left-handed students. Remember a few slides back with my pretend student who was going to the U of A, and I listed the Zombie Apocalypse Scholarship. That's a real scholarship, and you write how you would survive the zombie apocalypse. And so there are a lot of ways to find scholarships. And so just kind of generating things about you and just Googling scholarships for blank is a really great way to just get started. Right. I'm going to share some really helpful tips for you as you're planning and preparing for applying for scholarships, looking for scholarships. Uh, these are things that I've seen be successful for other students, and they were successful for me as well when I was a student. My very first tip for you is to start your search as soon as possible. The earlier you start looking for scholarships, the more opportunities you're going to be able to take advantage of, and hopefully the more scholarships you're going to be able to be awarded. Follow instructions. This seems like a no-brainer, but as somebody who's reviewed scholarships for years, this is the thing that gets students in trouble the most. So anytime there's instructions, follow them. And if you're not sure and you don't understand them, reach out to the scholarship contact and ask, because you don't want to not be awarded a scholarship just because you missed a detail in the instructions. So put time and effort into your applications. It's not going to do you any good if you turn in a sloppy application. They're not going to award you. So really put time and effort into these applications, which if you start searching as soon as possible, you're going to have that time and be able to do that. Have a second set of eyes look over your application before you submit, especially if there's an essay. They can catch mistakes, especially if they can read the instructions. They can maybe pick out an area that you need to improve. It's always good to get a second opinion to help you. And if you're having someone review your essay, make sure they're familiar with how an essay is supposed to be, grammar, things like that. So an English teacher would be a great person to ask. I love helping students with scholarship essays, so you can always reach out to me and I can help look over your application. So it's available for you. Apply for as many scholarships as you can. Just do it, right? If you qualify for it, why not apply? The more scholarships you apply for, the higher chances of getting awarded. If you're also doing all the things like following instructions and putting time and effort, you're not going to be awarded every scholarship you apply for, but you're going to increase your chances the more scholarships you apply for. So don't ignore the little scholarships. So it's tempting to really focus on like $5,000 scholarships, $10,000 scholarships, full ride scholarships. I see the allure in that, right? And I'm not telling you not to apply for those, but I'm also telling you to apply for that $250 scholarship, that $500 scholarship, that $1,000 scholarship, because they add up. Keep a calendar of all the scholarships you qualify for, even if that deadline has passed. Very often scholarships have their application available every year. And so maybe you missed it this year, but you could catch it next year. And so keep a calendar of what you find. And so that way you can keep reapplying every year. So even once you are in college or any post-high school education, continue looking and applying for scholarships. So maybe you're like our pretend student earlier who didn't have their whole amount covered with scholarships just starting off. But maybe they can that second year, right? There's always scholarships, even for continuing students who are already in school. So start early, follow the instructions, do your best on the application, and keep applying. And so that's all I have for you today. So please let us know how we can best help you. Keep in mind, I would love to review scholarship applications with you. Follow us on social media, because every Friday we have Financial Aid Friday and we share information about financial aid or even some scholarship opportunities. We're here to help you as you plan and prepare for life after high school. So just let us know how we can help.